Hello, beautiful mamas. As a working mom, sometimes I can really feel scattered, unorganized, or simply just rushing from one thing to another and all over the place. Finding time for myself and finding my sanity can almost feel like an impossible dream. Can you relate? Well, this is why I have created my free Mama's Guide to Creating Balance and Harmony as my gift to you. This guide contains my top 10 tips to creating balance and harmony in your life, as well as 3 beautiful trackers to help you get onto your journey in a fun and simple way. I have found by incorporating daily self-care routines and practices in my life for as little as 5 minutes a day, I am feeling more grounded, centered, and calm. By me tapping into my best version through these practices, I am also a better mom, a better partner, and a better colleague. Well, really, just a better human being in all the ways. So, if this sounds like something that you would like to explore, click on the link in the show notes below and download your free guide today. We were all born with the innate power of knowing and wisdom within us. The challenge for many of us is that we were taught to seek answers externally instead of searching from within. And this is the reason why so many of us find ourselves going around in circles, searching for new ways, but could never find the way. The womanly way. It's not the way. It's not my way. But it is a pathway to support all of us returning back to self, reconnect with our inner wisdom through loving ourselves, knowing ourselves, and reconnecting with ourselves.
Tell me and be honest. Tell me should I've known.
So we can start to find our own way as modern day women. Are you interested? Well, sit back, relax, and welcome to this amazing journey. Hello. Welcome to this episode of the Womanly Way podcast. I am your host, Lala Angela Wang. So good to see everybody. Well, I say see, but you're actually just listening to me. So I don't actually see you, but it's always good to hop on here, to have a chat. The idea and the energy I always have behind these podcast episodes is kind of like, I'm inviting you into my living room and we are friends having a chat. So I think that's why I felt like, saying it's so good to see you. Or it could just be the fact that I'm almost ready to go to bed, I think. All right, so I think today's episode is an interesting one. Depending on how you view health, depending on what school of thought you come from, and depending on what is your relationship with your body and with food. So I started this year, the first 3 days of 2024, doing a water fast. And a lot of people, when I did my research online, there's obviously, like anything, two opposing views. One school of thought is that, water fast could be dangerous for your health. The other school of thought is water fast is the way to go. And I just want to, I guess, start this podcast by saying, obviously, I'm not a medical professional person. So therefore, this is not, medical advice. This is simply talking about my own experience and the reason I did it and how I did it, to really perhaps share my journey, my experience with anyone that might be interested in. With anything, obviously, if you have health concerns, do consult your health professional, do a bit more research, and also feeling into your body as well. So that would be sort of my pre-qualifier for anyone that wanted to step into any type of fast, right? And I want to start this podcast journey by talking about my relationship with food, a bit about my health journey, and how it leads to me, I guess, have this hobby of experimenting with different things and seeing how my body reacts to it. So, growing up in a very traditional Asian family, we love our food. And I think it is safe to say, when you read articles and things, there are plenty of research that talks about how medical professionals, especially like doctors and nurses, don't always understand nutrition. And that is so, so, so true, because I come from a medical family. My mom's a nurse and my dad's a doctor, but they didn't really understand what nutrition really was. In fact, their nutrition was the food pyramid. And we all know now that the food pyramid was just like so wrong in terms of portion control, in terms of what's actually good for us, in terms of how much of each category that our body actually needs. So growing up, my mom used to cook fantastic meals that are just not very healthy. So I grew up chubby. I was born chubby as well back in those days. I think it was 3.9 kilos. It was 40 years ago. So I was considered as a big baby. And I've always considered being told that I was big boned. So being chubby is just in my genetics. And so I thought, right? But I started going to the gym at 15, 16 because my ex-boyfriend at the time started going to the gym. And to me, exercise has always been a torture. There's another story for another day, just because the way that my dad had kind of led us in a ways of like taking us to exercises, to play sport. He made it really regimented and boring, and it's like you have to done a certain way. And as kids, we hated rules, right? So exercise to me for the longest time has always been something to please my dad, just like chores. And I used to hate it. I used to hate it a lot. And it wasn't until my teenage years when I started to fall in love and meeting guys, I started to want to look different. I started to want to look a certain way. And this experience of going into the gym with my ex-boyfriend had opened up a new aspect of exercising that I didn't know. And as I get into uni, I started to go into the gym a little bit. I started to do classes, and I started to go to classes with my mum in summer. So starting to build a different relationship with exercise, but still does not have a good relationship with my body. Still didn't fully understand like what's actually a healthy way of eating, or even like have any sense of connection with my body. Was not awake, basically. It really wasn't until when we were planning our wedding with my ex-husband, I started to really look into how I can lose weight fast, how I can look skinny and good for the wedding. And I stumbled across this woman called Ashley Bine, I think that's her name. I don't even know whether she's still around. Definitely should look it up. She had this online program, and that's the very beginning of online programs. It was a booklet. You follow the meal plans that she's got and some exercises she had. And I remember people used to criticize how she's got typos everywhere and it's just like not a very well done book. Well, it's self-published and she probably didn't really get many people to check it. But what I have learned from her book is a different way of eating, is to look at, what actually helps us or help us reprogram our body when it comes to what we're feeding ourselves. And I started to have a different perspective on what does protein actually do, what's leafy greens and vegetables and fruits actually do to our body and carbs. So I started experimenting. And that's also when I started taking supplements and protein shakes. Oh my God, I still remember the protein shake that she recommended. I don't remember the brand anymore, but when I see the bottle, I remember it. And it was the most delicious thing. And I started working to build muscle rather than just planning to burn fat. And I started to sign up to various training programs and things online. And that's when I really starting to see the effect of food on my diet. But when I really stepping into this was after our separation with my ex-husband. I lost a lot of weight because I'm a kind of person when I'm in extreme stress, and the separation was something that caused during that period of time a lot of stress. I actually don't eat, and I lose weight very, very quickly. So I went from, I think it was like 55 kilos very shortly, in a very short period of time, probably within 3 months, down to about 51. And I looked horrible. I really looked horrible because it's like when you lose weight healthily, is it even a word? Or did I just make that a word? Healthily? When you lose weight in a healthy way, your skin is still radiating. It's still, you still have all the things that your skin needs, that your body needs. But when you lose weight rapidly, that's when a lot of people get saggy skin, or like my whole face just look a lot older. But it's also because, when you're going through a difficult period of time, I think I just had a really bad aura around me. Bad juju. But for that year, or for that period of time, my goal was to look skinny as I possibly can, live the best life that I could, and had nothing else to do, right? I no longer have family responsibilities. Literally, I would go home and it was just me. For the first little while, I was depressed, but once I got out of my depressed little rabbit hole, I started to go back to the gym because that's where I get to escape. Really, when I'm exercising, I'm not thinking about anything else, especially if I'm in a class or if I'm doing a run. I'm not thinking about anything else. So I was in the gym probably about 5 days a week, and I really wanted to get six pack. So the idea was, even if I no longer I'll get to having a six pack, and once I get there, it doesn't matter whether I become fatter or skinnier or whatever, as long as one day when I'm old, I get to tell my kids and show it to the photo and say, hey, look, your mum used to be, sexy and with six pack and skinny. I probably manifested this somehow myself, right? Because really the reality was I was 48 kilos, I had a six pack, and I started catering business and started to put on weight. So right now, I'm actually the heaviest I've ever been, besides being pregnant, obviously. At when I started this journey, I was at 67 kilos, and I'm now down to 64 since starting this journey in December. So, yay! Yeah. So the aim was to get six pack. So we'll go to the gym, and I started go back to what I know about nutrition, go back to what I know about understanding my body. And I managed to achieve that in less than 12 months on my own. And that's not even like, going to trainers and bodybuilder type coaches to understand what I need to eat. It was purely eating based on what I know works best for my body. I was even contemplating to become a personal trainer at that time. But you know what stopped me? Funny things. I actually had, because part of get the certificate, I think Cert 4 in, I don't remember what it's called. It's probably not personal training, but become a personal trainer is a Cert 4. And you have to go through an exam on body and anatomy and your muscle. I'm like, oh my God. The whole reason I didn't go into the scientific field, and the whole reason that my entire senior year in high school that I didn't do any science subject is because I hate science. Not because I hate it. I mean, there's a geeky side to me, but I don't like to memorize things like that. I love memorizing history. I love memorizing, things relating to history and geography. But when it comes to science and maths, not my strongest point. I mean, I can really do it if I really want to. So that was what stopped me from becoming a personal trainer. I might rethink that later on down the track, but yeah, that's something that I did not want to entertain. So got my six pack. But also at the time, I had a housemate who was doing macro counting. And so I also started doing that. But at the same time, when I was doing macro counting, I started my spiritual awakening, or I started my spiritual journey as well. So to me, it's always been a little bit of experimenting with new things, but it's also the more spiritual I become, it becomes this thing about listening to my body and listening to my intuition as to what's best for me. And, for the past few years, it's always been like that. My body would tell me what's good for me and what's not. And I would know. My psoriasis would tell me, my stomach would tell me, or I simply may not feel like doing something if I make that decision with my brain. Let's say, if I decided to go onto keto diet based on my brain thinking that's good for me, I know my body will literally find ways to tell me, well, that's not really what you want. And that's part of the reason why I never got into paleo or keto, just not my thing. So in terms of diet, I've tried a variety of things. I've also done a variety of different fasts. I've done juice fast. I haven't done bone broth, a broth fast, but also done going just fruit and veg for a few days. I still love my meat. And what I have experienced, the longest fast I've been on, has been a juice fast for 5 days. I always feel the benefits, but there's also side effects. There's a reason why I only do juice fast or any type of fast in summer, because my body gets cold really easily. And by doing fast, especially juice fast, because you're drinking something cold, and there's a Chinese thing about not drinking anything cold. And my body is very, what they call damp in a lot of ways. And therefore drinking cold stuff, like things out of the fridge, eating ice or cold stuff, ice cream, those things are actually really bad for my body. And I get cold really easily when I'm on a juice fast. I've done water fast for a day or two previously. So this time is the longest water fast that I have done. And the reason that I want to do it is, one, because we're just coming out of the Christmas season. I really feel like 2024 is going to be a massive year for me. And I want to start fresh and reset my body. Actually, I have managed to reset mind, body, spirit this year at the beginning of the year. To me, I don't start my January on a celebratory note anymore. I don't even do New Year's Eve, just with kids, and I really don't have that many friends these days. I often spend New Year's Eve at home alone, and a lot of times on those days Scott works anyway. So for me, not really a party fan anymore on New Year's Eve. So that means I'm pretty awake on 1st of Jan. And so my new year starts on the 1st of Jan. Whatever that I plan to do, it starts on the 1st of Jan, because I'm a big believer how you start is how you finish. Right? So for me, I want to start the 1st of Jan how I want to start, not just to sleep in and recover from, the previous night. So this year, when I fell into it, I guess let's go one step back, right? There were all these signs pointing towards a carnivore diet for me. There's multiple people talking about it, me feeling into it. And what it comes down to was, for me this year, because I want to focus on health, one of my focuses is to look at all the ways to get rid of my psoriasis if I can, or at least improve the condition, reduce the inflammation. And the carnivore diet has been shown, I'm not going to say proven, there's a difference there from a medical perspective, has shown to reduce the inflammation on the body. I've tried going vegan, I've tried going vegetarian, I've tried, diets that reduce inflammation. That hasn't really worked for me, especially now that I have to cook meals for my entire family. Some of those meals actually doesn't quite work. That means I have to double cook it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give carnivore a go. I'm going to start on the 1st of Jan, because knowing Christmas with visiting families, it's going to create a little bit of chaos. It's going to, make my mum-in-law's life perhaps a little bit more difficult, and I don't want to do that to her around the busy season. So I decided to start carnivore on the 1st of Jan. And as soon as I make that decision, there's this little voice that came in my head and go, do a 3-day water fast first to reset. And to be honest, I had my concerns, right? Because you're essentially, what you're doing when you go into water fast is that you're only drinking water, right? So, and then to go straight into something as extreme as the hardest thing to digest in your stomach, or one or two of the hardest things, to meat, that's a lot for our stomach to take in. And I was just like, I don't want to put my stomach into the shock, or my whole digestive system into the shock when I come out of water fast. So I'm going to talk about how I actually came out of my water fast towards the end of this podcast. I researched. And also, I think a lot of times it's understanding how your body works again. So really, for me, health is so integral with understanding your body. But it's really about, because there's no one person that's the same. It doesn't matter how much proven evidence or whatever is telling you that works for everybody else. It's always about experimenting, right? Even with macros, it's always about experimenting. It's about doing something for a certain period of time, have a real scientific approach to it. Like, I would note down the changes in my body. I would note down, I'll take measurements, note down what your body likes and dislike by looking at your output in the bathrooms, and really playing with it. As long as you're eating healthy, your body will be okay. And even if you have a hiccup along the way, your body will tell you. And having that trust in my body has been the biggest gift, because I know when something works and I know when something doesn't. And through the experiment, I now know what food are actually good for me and what food are actually not. So for me, going onto carnivore diet is like an experiment, right? So I've given myself 90 days because our cells actually regenerate every 90 days. So if you're doing anything to do with cell regeneration, to reset anything in your body, always do it for a minimum of 90 days, because that's how much your body needs to really tell you whether something works or not. And that's when consistency is the key, right? So I started with the water fast, wanting to reset my body, but also it's a good way to cleanse. When you do research, and this is part that kind of frustrates me. I've done a lot of research on water fast, but so many people who claim to be medical professions will talk about water fast as, oh, people wanted to do it to lose weight. Most of people wanted to do water fast to lose weight. It's not about weight loss. And if you just want to do water fast to lose weight, please don't, because that's not a permanent solution. All you're doing is just delaying the amount of food that you put in your system. And if you do, let's say you do intermittent water fast, well, if you're just going to go back to your normal eating habit after the fast, then you're still going to put all that weight back on, right? In fact, you might actually do more damage, because you're going to be craving a certain food after your fast, and you're going to end up in this yo-yo effect. It's actually going to be worse for your body. So I don't do water fast regularly. If anything, I'll probably only do it once a year. And like I said, because my body this is another thing that I'm working on, is damp. Because according to the Chinese medicine, or theory in Chinese medicine, I don't want to do water fast in winter, because I'll get really, really, really cold, and I'm going to have to drink lots and lots of hot water, and it's not always available. And then because I work in the aircon environment, it just isn't the best for my body. So it's likely, if I'm going to continue to do water fast, it will be essentially at the beginning of each year. I'll do 3 days. So for me, it's not to lose weight. Okay, and like I said, I highly recommend, if you want to lose weight, find some other ways to do it. It's not really designed for that, or it's not really aimed for that. And if you really think about whether it's good for our body or not, it's something that our body, I believe, was built for. Because if you think about on hunter-gatherer days, if you don't get meat that day, water's the only thing, right? So our body, I believe, is built for water fast. I believe our body can survive, but you just need to, again, listen to your body, but then start little by little. Like I said at the very beginning of the show, I used to do a 1-day water fast, and I increased it to 2 days, and hence how I do 3 days now. But even with the 3 days, right, I found day 1 was okay. Day 2, because I also have to look after a little one, I do need a little bit more energy. So I got really low energy at the end of day 2. So what I did was I had day 2 and 3, I had some bone broth just to give me a little boost in energy and in fueling my day so I can look after George. And it's also a good way to reintroduce me back to food, especially integrating back into carnivore diet, which we'll talk about a bit later. So what I found was really interesting was that the amount of output, junk that I was able to output out. And really that's what it is, right? You stop consuming food and using just water, using good quality water, by the way. I actually had hydrogenated water throughout all 3 days. By doing that, you're actually flushing out the impurities in your body. I truly believe it flushes out all the things on your stomach walls, on your intestine walls, just washing out any, I guess, things that we may not be able to wash out normally. Plus, water is great for hydration. I used to call myself a camel because I could go by within some days when I'm really busy, I could only have I'll find myself only have 1 glass of water or 2 maybe. So what I found from drinking just water for 3 days is that my body readjusted itself, and now it will tell me that I need to drink more water a lot quicker than what it used to be, because it's like, oh, I actually get to have this much water. So I get thirsty a lot quicker. And also, since being on hydrogen water, I also found that I get thirsty a lot quicker. From talking to one of my friend who's also another podcast host within a network, Karen Rose, she has also had the same experience. It's like our body finally realized that we don't have to be in this desert state anymore. Quote and unquote desert state anymore, dry as anything and not having water. So it's like my body finally waking up to more hydration. And I'm actually finding myself less tired. But that could be because I've been on leave since January 1st, right? And, having plenty of rest and having plenty of me time, replenishing myself. And that's the other thing I want to say. If you want to do a water fast, pick days that you're not working or you're not going to have lots of output. Because seriously, reserving energy is part of the key. You don't want to be going to the gym and, pumping the iron, because you just can't. Your body is not going to be able to cope. But treat yourself almost like an at-home retreat if you can. Maybe pick a long weekend or just do the Saturday and Sunday. Because when you need focus, when you need, concentration, it gets a little bit difficult. It's like on day 3 of my fast, I actually had to go into the office and work that day. It wasn't fun. I was a bit slow. And when I say a bit slow, it's like there's a lag in my brain. Like it just takes a little bit longer for things to happen. But I felt great coming out of it, especially having a strategy going in, knowing what I'm aiming at. And I was so excited. I was so looking forward to the 4th of January, when I can go to the shops and buy fresh ingredients and cook up the meals I've been planning in my head for the last 3 days. It was so funny. Throughout this whole process, I was looking at all these, I love looking at food reviews on Facebook, but like reels or like cooking shows, Asian cooking shows on Facebook reels. I was looking at the whole 3 days. And you know what? Not for once I was hungry. And I think it's because I pre-planned this thing, and in my head I have really replayed out how the 3 days are going to pan out, how I am going to stick with my plan of water fast and coming out on the 4th celebrating with just the most delicious of food, and everything's going to taste better. So on the evening of the 3rd, my last day of water fast, I had a bone broth. And then on the morning, I had another bone broth. Oh, by the way, all 3 days I still have black coffee, just no milk. No milk whatsoever, just black coffee. Just so I can stay awake and keep George entertained. So I had bone broth on the night of the last day of my fast. I had bone broth in the morning. And I started with really easier to digest food that's not super fatty. And it's not going to put too much pressure on my body. So I started with eggs. And then I started with a white soft fish. And I started slowly going in from white to pork and chicken and pork. And it was until not even to day 5, day 6 was when I started red meat. So I gave my body 2 days to slowly integrate back with smaller portions as well. Small portions, more regular meals, just slowly warming my body back up. And that actually worked really well. There's no constipation. The first, the first 2 days after the fast, I didn't have a lot of output, but that makes sense, right? Because I didn't eat for 3 days. And then it just kind of my bowel movement has been pretty normal. I think that's from drinking a lot of water, but also making sure that I got enough fat to help lubricate the system. And now today, on the day that I record this podcast, it's the 16th. So day 13 of my carnivore journey. And I'm loving it. I'm loving how easy it is to meal prep. I'm loving how easy it is to cook. The only downside is I have to make sure I pack my own lunch because it's actually really hard to find food around that has not got anything but meat. It has not got any carb on it. So I have to make sure I meal prep. And that's the important thing, I guess. But there's just so many options. Especially Chinese people, we love our meat. There's just so many amazing options when it comes to cooking meat and protein. And plus I love seafood, so it gives me a really good excuse to go to the seafood market and book plenty of fresh seafood over the weekend. Or just it makes me so happy. Get to have lots of sashimi. So yeah, I do water fast to reset my body, to really give my body a chance to take a break, cleanse. And it just feels like a good thing to do at the beginning of year to reset, even from a mindset perspective, from a spiritual perspective. There's just no other interference because food has energy too, and if we eat some food and make us feel sluggish, like carb, or a really fatty meal like Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? So I think water fast is probably a bit extreme, but I believe it's a good way for me to set the year. And like I said, how I start is how I finish. It's almost like me telling my mind, telling my body, telling every part of me, we're serious about this. We're doing it this year, and we're starting on a clean slate, literally. And I love it. So again, what I would recommend if you are looking to do a water fast, start with 1 day, then 2 days, then 3 days. But do some research, right? Do some research, do yourself a favor, and see and feel into whether that is the right thing for you. And if in doubt, always consult a health profession. And yeah, hopefully this episode offers you some insight, some perspective. But like I said, the intention is to share my journey and hopefully inspire some people and hopefully offers some additional information. If you're having any questions, I'm always happy to answer any questions. Just no medical advice, obviously. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Womanly Way podcast. Thank you once again for listening and tuning in, and I will speak to you next time. Love you all. Thank you. Bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Womanly Way. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast if you feel aligned to do so. Or check out our post-show discussions on my Instagram page, @The Womanly Way. See you next time.